These videos, this content is not intended for adolescents. I would highly suggest getting your children out of the room. Don't let them see it. Don't let them hear it. Now, this is the one you got to be careful for. This is the one you got to watch out. This one hits you hard. This one partly changed my life. Are you ready? Are you ready? You still with me? You still with me? I'm glad, honestly. Okay, here's what's next. So now we're at about the age of 5. These times aren't exactly precise. My parents end up separating. My father did quite a bit of time in jail and missed a fair amount of my childhood. Problems between them festered and they separated. Okay, the next one is a bit more joyful, thankfully. It's my first experience with a real true friend for the short time that I had them. And by this time, I've already probably moved about 4 or 5 times in my life. And yeah, we moved to a normal track homing area. And I ended up meeting a friend who also I went to school with that lived a few blocks away by the name of Tony. Always loved that too. I was like, I'm Italian, why couldn't I'm Ken? Why couldn't I have been named Tony or something, All blessings to my mother. But yeah, he got the Tony, I got the Ken. But we became good friends. And in a way I was kind of honored because he was a good looking guy. He was popular, and being around him, it was like a special privilege. It just so happened that we had a bond. We had a lot of similarities, a lot of similar personality. So anyways, one fond memory I have was that we used to go over his house a bit and sit in his room and stuff, and we'd listen to music, rock and roll at the time. And he had these posters. If you're from the 70s or 60s or even 80s, you may remember these posters, and they brought them back later. They glow in the dark, first off, and you color them. When you buy them new, they're this white poster with this black felt and spaces where you color. And when you put them in, get them done and put them up at night or in the dark, they glow. They're freaking awesome. I love those things. Bring them back, companies, bring them back. Anyway, so we'd sit there, we'd just chill and stuff. And honestly, that's about it. That's the memories. We hung out a lot, was happy to hang out. We hung out at school too. Of course, the girls were on him, even at that young age. It was funny. How does that happen, right? But yeah, awesome guy. I miss you, Tony. And then now, this is the one you got to be careful for. This is the one you got to watch out. This one hits you hard. This one partly changed my life. Are you ready? Are you ready? Sit down. Sit down. So, the friend Tony that I had, there was a group of us that used to hang, probably about 4 of us, all similar in age, 6, 7, 5. One of our friends had a little brother, probably about 4 years old. He had a bad habit. An innocent bad habit. He'd chase ice cream trucks. He loved ice cream. One day I was at my friend's house, not his brother's house, not his house, and I was going home. And I was just a block or 2 from my house. And I heard what sounded like screeching of tires and kind of like a crash. but not metal on stone, not metal on metal. I wasn't sure. And then an engine rev, and the car speeding quickly, slight squealing of tires. I turned the corner on the same street I live on, half a block away from my house. My friend's brother, 4 years old, was laying in the street. He was motionless. I looked around. I was stunned for a sec. 60, 70 feet was the scene. His shoes were in some of that range. His bits of his clothing were in other areas of that range. His teeth were all throughout that range. He's still motionless. I choked for a bit. It hit me. I need to go to his house. I ran as quick as I could, as hard as I could. I got there to Fortune. His sister and mother were there. I told them. Within the blink of an eye, they were out of the house. I tried running. I couldn't keep up. I have no more memory, except for visiting his house a few months later, and his brother was there. He lived through it. It wasn't good. He was in more of a cast than I've ever seen a human in. I didn't know they made casts like that. His chest, his abdomen, his legs, his ankles, his feet were all in cast. His arms, his wrists, his hands, his neck, his head. It fully encompassed his head. This is a hard cast, the old kind. What was visible? How did he breathe? Oh, they had holes for that. He had a hole for his mouth, and his nose and his eyes, and his toes. The rest of it was a solid piece. I hope he's okay to this day. I have no more memories of that time period in my life. Next story. Thank you for hanging. The next one or two, I'm sorry, they were intense. My mother gets in a new relationship. By now, I'm 6 to 7 years old, 6 I believe. He's an alcoholic. I don't know if she knew at the time. I don't know if she knew. I can't tell you much about it. I don't know how long it was. I remember almost nothing. I don't remember what I was doing, who I was with, so I would assume this was a short time. Apparently, he had violent tendencies. Things she told me later in life. One day we came home, and I guess one of those transpired. And the house was wrecked. Looked like somebody broke in and trashed the place. Things broken. Lot was destroyed. I can't remember how much, but quite a bit. But the thing I do remember, my mother was fond of pets. And at times in our lives, she would have large amounts of pets, different types. You never know, from a chicken to a duck to a bird to a guinea pig to a cat to a dog. So at this particular point in my life, I wasn't sure exactly what kind of pets we had. I do remember some birds, some cats, just a few. They were dead. They were all dead. I can't recall the various ways they were dead. But I do recall one of the birds by the entrance in the foyer. It was crushed by hand. It looked like a small bird fit in the palm of your hand. You don't want to know what it looked like. That ends that memory. My next one was a bit off. We'll get to that. Please, I hope the kids aren't in the room. Let's move on. The next one's a strange experience. I don't know how this is going to move you. I don't consider it as intense as the others, but it was. The very first story, the coffee table and the forehead playing Superman, that could have be considered my first dance with death, my first dodging of it. This may be the second or the third, depending on how you look at the finger. It was bleeding bad. This one, me and a friend I was living in an apartment complex. By the way, now I've lived a few more places. I think one or two since then. I'm not quite sure how many I'm on, but it's quite a few moves. New location, an apartment complex. Couldn't tell you where. Somewhere around California Bay Area. Maybe San Jose, maybe San Mateo. I don't know. Me and my friend decide we're going to play, new group of friends. We decide, me and one friend, we're going to play Cowboys and Indians. Common in the day. And I believe I was playing the Indian roles. The role kind of didn't matter in this case. It was a 2-story apartment complex, so not that tall. I was up on the 2nd story, and he was in pursuit. At this point, I was trying to hide to get tactical advantage to sneak up behind him. This wasn't the case. He was on my tail. I don't know if he had spotted me yet, but he was running my direction, so I ran up the stairs to the 2nd level. For a moment, I forgot the layout of the place. That was critical. And it nearly cost me my life. So I decided to make a left. What I forgot was it goes straight. Then it makes a left and goes straight. It makes a right and it dead ends. And I'm on the 2nd story. On one side, you have doors to apartments right there. They're all closed. On the other side is a wall, a barrier, stopping you from a story is about 10 feet, maybe a 12-foot drop, give or take. And guess what they have all under there? It's all cement. You ever seen the cement with the little smooth stones in it? Stone, slightly spaced, but you can see the cement. A little uncomfortable to walk on, not too bad. That's what it is. So what do? He's coming around the last corner. I can hear him. I've got nowhere to go. I'm in the dead end. So what kind of idea do I get? I guess the idea a 6 or 7-year-old gets, right? I climbed over the ledge and hung, praying he can't see my fingers. I figured if he looked hard enough, he'll see them. But I figured if he just glances, he might not notice. It's a good plan, right? Here's what happened. He found me. He comes to the edge. I'm holding on. At this point, I'm okay. I'm hanging there, but I'm not in a good position. That cement's beneath me. And he looks down. He goes, "What are you doing there?" I was like, I need some help. My fingers are slipping. And he says, "Yeah, I know, but what are you doing there? Why did you do that?" And I said, "No, I really need help. I can't do it." At this point, the strength is zapping in my arms very rapidly. My fingers won't stay closed. And I know it. I feel it. There's nothing I can do to stop it. He almost gets to the realization, "Hey, I gotta help you." But he's still inquisitive. That was it. That was the last moment I had. My fingers gave out. Witnesses say I fell and did a somersault. Landed directly on my skull. Almost like a pile driver on cement. It was a man and his wife across the street. They said they ran as quick as they could, and they came over. What I remember is being turned around and seeing the two of their faces. And I remember I needed to cry. I couldn't. I couldn't cry. Where do you live? They're asking. I want to tell them I know where. My mouth is working, but words won't come out. I can't speak. I'm gasping for air. I get little bits of air now and then, little gasps. I can't cry. I can't speak. I'm nothing. I don't know how it happened. Next thing I remember, a few people are carrying me, and we're approaching my apartment from the outside. Then I remember being inside the apartment, and I remember laying down and somebody going to put me on the floor and somebody going to put me on the couch. Somebody say, no, don't move him. Then I remember a ride to the hospital. I'm barely starting to be able to say a word or two, but that's it. And then it's almost like hiccups. I can't speak. I can't get good oxygen flow either. I can't cry still. And we get there, and I don't remember much after that. It was something like he got a bad concussion. I don't see any damage, no fractures, no cracks, no swells, no nothing. We don't know how. We don't understand it, but you're lucky. Go home. Never had incident after. Outside of my dumb idea to make this channel, right? Yeah, maybe it affected me. Glad you're with me again, man. We got a lot to go over. We got a lot of interesting stuff, and I haven't got to the good stuff yet. No, not yet. We're going for a journey.